Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking ahead to 2025 and trying to get a sense of where the global economy might be headed.
Yeah, predicting the future of the economy is never easy. It's
Like trying to predict the weather,
exactly, so many factors involved, but it's still important to try and understand those trends.
especially, if you're making decisions today, big or small.
Absolutely.
Okay, so big picture first. What kind of global economic outlook are we looking at for 2025?
Well, think steady, but maybe not super exciting growth.
Yeah.
The projections are showing global GDP hovering around like that 3.1% in 2024, and maybe a little uptick to 3.2% in 25.
So continued growth,
Yeah, continued growth.
but maybe not like the boom time.
Yeah, more of like a new normal, of more moderate growth.
Okay, a new normal.
Uh,
I like that. And what's interesting is that it's not the same everywhere. Right.
mm.
We're seeing some pretty distinct differences in how economies are expected to perform in different parts of the world.
Yeah, for sure. Take the U.S., for example.
Okay, the
It's
U.S.
projected to grow at like 2.6% in 2024.
Okay, not bad.
But then cooling down to like 1.8 in 25.
That's kind of slowing down a little bit.
Exactly.
What's driving that?
Well, high borrowing costs are making it more expensive for businesses to invest and expand. And we're also seeing like a moderation in domestic demand. People are just being a little bit more cautious with their spending.
Makes sense given all the uncertainty, in the world these days. Okay, so the U.S. is maybe like tapping the brakes a little bit. What about Europe? What's happening over there?
Well, actually, Europe is poised for a bit of a comeback story.
Ooh, comeback story. I like it. Tell me more.
So they experienced some stagnation, in late 2023, but
Yeah.
their GDP is projected to reach 0.7% in 24 and then jump to 1.5% in 25.
Okay, so a little bit of a slower start, but then picking up.
Yeah, a gradual rebound.
What's fueling that rebound?
Well, a few things are happening. Real household incomes are rising, which means people have more money to spend. The labor market is really tight over there, so more people are working and earning wages. And there are some reductions in policy interest rates, which can help stimulate economic activity.
Okay, so a few things working in their favor there. Interesting. So we've got the U.S. kind of cooling down a little bit and Europe heating up.
Mm-hmm.
A tale of two economies. Now we can't talk about the global economy without talking about China.
Oh, of course, the big player.
Yeah, exactly. What's the outlook for the world's second largest economy?
Well, their growth is projected to moderate as well, down to about 4.9% in 24 and then 4.5% in 25.
Okay, so those are still pretty high numbers
They are.
compared to a lot of other developed economies.
Yeah, but it does represent a slowdown for China.
Yeah, and even a moderate slowdown for China is kind of a big deal.
Oh, for sure.
What's behind that moderation?
Well, there are some persistent weaknesses in their property markets, and the level of fiscal support from the government might be a little smaller than anticipated.
Okay, so definitely something to watch closely there, too.
Absolutely. China's economic performance has ripple effects all over the globe.
No doubt. All right, let's talk about something that's been on everyone's mind lately, inflation. Any relief in sight for 2025?
Well, the good news is that global inflation is expected to ease a little bit, reaching 5% in 24 and then 3.4% in 25.
Okay, so it's coming down,
Yeah, it's coming down.
but still, pretty high historically.
Yeah, it's still something to keep an eye on.
So why is it easing?
Well, partly due to that tight monetary policy, central banks raising those interest rates to try and cool things down.
Yeah,
And we are also seeing some fading price pressures on things like goods and energy, which helps.
right. So we're all feeling that at the gas pump, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Now, what does this all mean for us, me and everyone else listening? How might these inflationary trends, both the easing and the areas where it's stickier, impact our wallets and our decisions? Are we changing how we spend? Are we changing how we invest?
That's a great question, and it really highlights why understanding these economic trends matters.
Mhm.
Inflation impacts everything from the price of groceries to the cost of borrowing money. So, yeah, it's essential to be aware of these shifts and consider how they might be influencing your own financial choices.
Absolutely. All right, let's get a little more specific. We talked about the big picture, but I'm curious about how this plays out in different sectors. Commodities.
Yeah.
We've seen some wild swings in prices lately. What's on the horizon for 2025?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag for sure,
Yeah.
which makes it even more interesting.
Okay. I like mixed bags.
Let's start with oil. Crude oil prices are expected to face some downward pressure in 2025.
Okay, oil going down.
Weak demand as the global economy cools and potential increases in production from those oil-producing countries are both factors.
Okay, so supply and demand both playing a role there.
Exactly. And there's another big trend to keep in mind here, the transition to electric vehicles.
Yeah.
That's going to put a further dent in oil demand down the road.
So oil might be facing some headwinds. What about natural gas? I keep hearing that's having a bit of a moment.
Oh yeah, natural gas is looking pretty strong for 2025.
Right.
We're seeing increased demand, especially for liquefied natural gas or LNG.
Right, LNG.
It's easier to transport, which makes it a hot commodity on that global energy market.
Okay, so oil down, natural gas up. What about other industrial commodities? How about steel?
Well, the steel industry is facing a bit of an uphill battle. There's a growing overcapacity problem.
Okay, what does that mean?
Basically, there's more steel being produced than the market needs right now.
Oh, okay, so too much supply.
Exactly. And that's keeping prices low. But there could be a turnaround if we see a recovery in global manufacturing activity later in 2025 that
Yeah.
could boost demand and give steel prices some support.
Okay, fingers crossed for the steel industry.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about that classic safe haven asset, gold.
Yeah.
How's it expected to perform in 2025?
Gold is expected to continue shining.
Oh, I like that.
There are a few reasons for this falling. Interest rates make gold a more attractive investment. Central banks are increasing their gold reserves.
Right.
And its safe haven appeal. It never really goes out of style.
Especially when things are uncertain.
Exactly. So yeah, if you're feeling a bit jittery about the economic outlook, gold might offer a little peace of mind.
Okay, gold might be a good bet then.
Hmm?
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we move on, we have to address the elephant in the room, geopolitics. How are those tensions potentially impacting the economic outlook for 2025?
Yeah, you're right. We can't ignore geopolitics. Heightened geopolitical tensions, especially the conflict in the Middle East, are a major wild card in the economic outlook.
Yeah, it's a little bit unnerving to think about,
It is.
but important to consider. So walk us through some of those potential scenarios. What could happen if things escalate?
Well, escalating conflicts could disrupt commodity markets, leading to price spikes and even shortages. We could see disruptions to supply chains, making it harder for businesses to get the materials they need. And global trade flows could be disrupted, impacting economies that rely heavily on, exports and imports. All of these factors could really negatively impact global economic growth, making those already moderate projections even more fragile.
Okay, a bit of a domino effect.
Yeah,
Conflict triggers disruption, which then impacts growth.
right,
It's definitely a reminder that the global economy is interconnected in so many ways.
for sure.
Yeah, it really is like a shadow looming over everything.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential economic consequences if these conflicts escalate?
Well, like we were saying, escalating conflicts could disrupt those commodity markets, leading to price spikes and maybe even shortages.
Yeah.
And we could see disruptions to those supply chains, making it harder for businesses to get the materials they need to operate. And global trade flows could be disrupted, which would impact economies that rely heavily on exports and imports.
Yeah, those are all pretty significant potential impacts.
Right. And all of these factors, they could really negatively impact global economic growth, making those already moderate projections even more fragile.
Okay, so it's like a bit of a domino effect.
Hmm.
Conflict triggers disruption, which then impacts growth. It's definitely a reminder that, the global economy is interconnected in so many ways.
Yeah, everything's connected.
All right, I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about something that's been on my mind ever since we started talking about 2025, the energy transition. It's a topic that's everywhere these days and for good reason. As we move towards cleaner energy sources, what kind of impact is that going to have on the economic landscape?
Yeah, that's a great point. The energy transition is a major force shaping the economic future, and it's going to create both opportunities and challenges.
Yeah, for sure. We already touched on the potential decline in oil demand, but what about the flip side? What are some of the potential upsides?
Well, think about it this way. The transition is likely to increase demand for commodities that are crucial for those renewable energy technologies.
Oh, that's a good point. So while some traditional energy sources might see declining demand, others could become the new stars of the show. It's like a changing of the guard in the energy world.
Yeah.
What are some of those commodities that are poised to benefit? Give us some examples.
Sure, think lithium for batteries, which are essential for electric vehicles and energy storage. And then there are rare earth elements, which are used in things like wind turbines and other clean energy technologies. And we can't forget about copper, which is needed for all sorts of electrification projects, from power grids to electric vehicles.
So it's not just about the energy source itself, it's about the entire supply chain and the materials needed to make it all work. That's a fascinating insight.
Yeah, it's a whole ecosystem.
Now, speaking of transitions, I want to talk about another big one, the future of work. We hear so much about how automation and AI are going to transform the job market. Is this something we're likely to see playing out in a significant way by 2025?
Oh, absolutely. The future of work is already happening, and it's only going to accelerate in the coming years. Automation and AI are already changing the nature of work, and yeah, we'll definitely see more of that by 2025.
So what does that mean for jobs? Are we talking massive job losses?
Well, some jobs will inevitably become obsolete as technology advances, but the good news is that new jobs will emerge. It's a process of what economists call creative destruction, and it's always been part of economic progress.
Okay, that makes sense.
Oh.
But I think a lot of people are feeling anxious about these changes. What advice would you give to someone listening who's trying to navigate this evolving job market? How can we prepare for a future where the rules of work are constantly changing?
Well, I think the key is adaptability. Instead of fearing the robots, focus on developing skills that are in high demand and likely to remain so even as technology advances.
That's a good advice.
Yeah.
But what are some of those skills? Give us some specifics.
Sure. Think critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, emotional intelligence. These are all skills that machines haven't quite mastered yet, and they're going to be incredibly valuable in any job market, no matter how much technology changes things.
So it's about focusing on those uniquely human skills, the ones that set us apart from the machines.
Exactly.
I like that. Now let's move on to another major factor shaping the economic outlook, demographics. The global population is aging, and that's bound to have some pretty profound effects on economies around the world.
hmm
How might this play out in 2025?
You're right. Demographics are a key piece of the economic puzzle. An aging population can lead to slower economic growth as workforces shrink and healthcare costs rise.
Okay, so there's a potential downside there.
There is,
Got
but
it.
it can also create opportunities for innovation in areas like healthcare biotechnology and even leisure and retirement services.
Okay, so there's an upside too. It's all about how we adapt.
Yeah.
What can countries do to make the most of these demographic shifts?
Yeah.
How do we mitigate the negative impacts and harness those potential benefits?
Well, it's about being proactive and making smart policy choices. Encouraging longer working lives is one strategy. This could involve policies that support older workers and make it easier for them to stay in the workforce. Another important step is investing in healthcare and social care systems to ensure that they can adequately meet the needs of an aging population. And of course, fostering innovation in areas like biotechnology and age tech can help create new industries and job opportunities.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
It is.
It's fascinating to see how these different pieces of the puzzle, the energy transition, the future of work, and demographics, are all interconnected and influencing the economic outlook for 2025.
Yeah.
It's not just about isolated trends, it's about how they all interact and shape the bigger picture.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of taking a holistic view of the economy. These trends are not happening in a vacuum. They're all influencing each other.
Now, before we dive into the listener's personal finances, I have to ask about something that's been on my mind ever since we started talking about 2025. Remember all those futuristic movies that promised us flying cars? Any chance of those becoming a reality in the next couple of years?
Well, while we might not be zipping through the skies in our personal flying cars just yet, there are some exciting developments happening in that area. Advancements in what they call electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft or eVTOLs are bringing us closer to that vision. And 2025 could be a pivotal year for the development and testing of these technologies.
So maybe not widespread flying cars, but we're getting closer.
We're getting there.
Okay, back to economic realities. Let's talk about something that's probably on a lot of people's minds, personal finances. Given all the economic trends we've discussed, what advice would you give to someone listening who's trying to navigate their own financial future in this uncertain landscape?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that I think everyone should be asking themselves. In a world of economic shifts and uncertainties, financial literacy is more important than ever.
Financial literacy for the win.
Yeah, understanding basic economic concepts and principles can really empower you to make informed decisions about your money, whether it's budgeting, saving, investing, or planning for the future.
Absolutely. What else should people be thinking about when it comes to their personal finances in the context of all these trends?
Well, I think diversifying your income streams is another important consideration. The traditional model of a single job for life is becoming less common these days.
Yeah, the gig economy is definitely changing things up.
Exactly. So, exploring opportunities for additional income or side hustles can provide a safety net and create more financial resilience.
I like that diversifying your income as a way to navigate uncertainty. What about investing? Any tips for the average person who's not a financial expert and might be feeling a bit intimidated by the stock market or other investment options?
Yeah, investing can seem daunting, but it doesn't have to be. One of the best things you can do is take a long-term approach. Don't get caught up in the hype of those short-term market fluctuations. Remember, time is your friend when it comes to investing.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly. Consistency and patience are key.
So true. It's about playing the long game, not trying to time the market perfectly.
Yeah.
Now, one last question before we move on. We've talked about global trends, specific sectors, and even personal finances. But what about the role of governments in all of this? What actions can they take to help create a more stable and prosperous economic future, not just for 2025, but for the long haul?
That's a big question, but an essential one. Governments play a crucial role in shaping the economic landscape. In a nutshell, they need to focus on policies that foster sustainable and inclusive growth.
Sustainable and inclusive growth. Can you unpack that a bit for us? What does that look like in practice?
Sure, sustainable growth means ensuring that economic progress doesn't come at the expense of the environment or future generations. It means investing in renewable energy, promoting resource efficiency, and addressing climate change head on.
Okay, so thinking long term.
Exactly. These are investments that will pay dividends in the long run, both economically and environmentally.
And what about that inclusive growth piece? What does that entail?
Inclusive growth is about creating an economy that works for everyone, not just the select few. It means investing in education and skills training, ensuring access to healthcare and affordable housing, and promoting policies that reduce inequality. It's about creating a more level playing field and ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to thrive and reach their full potential.
So it's not just about growing the economic pie, it's about making sure everyone gets a slice.
Exactly.
And in the long run, a more inclusive economy benefits everyone. It creates more stability, more opportunity, and stronger foundation for future growth.
Absolutely. It's about creating a more just and equitable society, and that's something worth striving for. Yeah, it really is about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to succeed.
I love that vision.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in all the doom and gloom headlines, but what I'm hearing from you is a sense of cautious optimism. Yes, we're facing some serious challenges, but we also have the power to shape a better future, both individually and collectively.
Absolutely. I think it's important to remember that economics is ultimately about people. It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to live a fulfilling and prosperous life. And that's something worth striving for, even in the face of uncertainty.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the economic landscape of 2025, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question, something to ponder as they continue their own economic journeys. Knowing what we've explored today about the potential trends, the challenges, and the opportunities, how might these economic forces continue to shape the world in 2026 and beyond? What ripple effects might we see? What new innovations might emerge? And most importantly, what role will you play in shaping this evolving economic landscape?
Those are excellent questions, and I encourage everyone listening to explore them further. The future is not something that simply happens to us. It's something we actively create through our choices, our actions, and our collective efforts.
Beautifully said. Stay curious, stay engaged, and remember that the future is full of possibilities. That's a wrap on this deep dive into Economics 2025. Thanks for joining us.